Hello students. Before proceeding the further lesson, first let's recall the story. As we know that this chapter is an extract from the autobiography of Nelson Mandela, who was the first black president of South Africa. It begins with the description of their inaugural ceremony which took place on the 10th May of 1994, where the entire nation, along with many international leaders and dignitaries, embraced the victory of a newly and fairly elected government. They all had come to be a part of the most significant day. At first, in the ceremony, Mr. De Klerk has sworn as a second deputy minister. Then Thabo Mbeki has sworn as a first deputy minister, and at last Mandela took the oath as the first black president. In his speech, Mandela thanked all those dignitaries. Mandela assured his countrymen that his country would never ever experience the same suppression of one by another. Democracy had been established in South Africa, and as a result, a government of no discrimination was established. So that's what we learn in the first part of this story. Now, moving further, a few moments later, we all lifted our eyes in awe as a spectacular array of South African jets, helicopters, and troop carriers roared in perfect formation over the Union buildings. Now, after this oath ceremony, after these three people has taken the oath, this spectacular array of South African jets and helicopters and troop carriers, they formed a perfect formation over the Union buildings. Now they have displayed the colorful, they have displayed their power, they have displayed their a very beautiful view in the Union, over the Union buildings. It was not only a display of pinpoint precision and military force. Now, if you have watched the television on 26 January or 15th August, you might have seen this kind of military march, military display. That kind of thing was going on at that time, and according to Nelson Mandela, he thinks that it is not just a display of precision or military force. It is not just it is not just a merely display itself, but a demonstration of the military's loyalty to democracy and to a new government that had been freely and fairly elected. So it is not just a display of military force or accuracy, but it is the demonstration of the military loyalty. So it is not just a display. They are not proving themselves that we are displaying, we have this much strength or we have this much power or armed forces. They are just simply demonstrating the loyalty, military's loyalty to the newly democratic country, to this democracy and a new government that had been freely and fairly elected. So it is a very free and fair elections was there, and he was the first person who was elected as a president of South Africa and first black person. Only moments before, the highest generals of South African Defence Force and Police. So just a moment before what happens, the highest generals. Now these are the rank of the army. right? So the highest generals of the South African Defence Force and police, their chest backed with ribbons and medals. Now they have decorated their chest with the ribbons and medals that they have won, they have achieved from days gone by, saluted me and pledged their loyalty. Now this is the procession that one, if one is one has taken the oath, one has become the president of the country. Now this kind of, they have to salute Mr. President, and they have to pledge their loyalty towards the president and towards the country. So that kind of ceremony is going on. I was not unmindful of the fact that not so many years before they would not have saluted but arrested me. Now he remembered that, and he was not unmindful. That means he was not conscious. He was conscious of, he was aware of the fact that many years, so not so many years before, as we know that Nelson Mandela, when he has spent 27 years in the prison, and after this 27 years of prisonhood, he was elected as a president of South Africa. So he knew the fact, he was conscious about the fact that many years before they would not have saluted me. These generals, these police who are backed with ribbons and medals, right, they have not saluted him, but they have arrested him. So he knew, he was aware of this fact. Finally, a chevron of Impala jets left a smoke trail of a black, red, green, blue, and gold of the new South African flag. Now, finally, a pattern. Chevron, that means a pattern in the shape of V, and trail, that means series and chain. So these jets and helicopter, they might be over there on in the, above their heads in the sky, of course. And these Impala jets, these helicopters and also stuff, they left a smoke trail. So they are making this with this help of these colors, the new South African flags. The day was symbolized for me by the playing of our two national anthem. Now, two national anthem were playing on at that time. Okay, and the vision of white singing Kose Sikei Africa. This is the African national anthem. Okay, so the vision of white, the people who has vision of these white people, they are singing Kose Sikaya Africa, and black singing Die Stem. Now this is the another African national anthem, the old anthem of the Republic people. Okay, so the black were singing Die Stem and the white were singing Kose Sikaya Africa. Although that day neither group knew the lyrics of the anthem, neither group, so not even the whites, not even the black, neither group knew the lyrics of the anthem. So both of the group are not, they don't know the lyrics of the anthem. They once despised, that means had a very low opinion of, because they didn't know the other anthem, because they have a very low opinion of this anthem. They would soon know the words by heart. So after some times they will soon know these words, the words of the anthem by their heart. On the day of the inauguration, I was overwhelmed with a sense of history. So, on the day of the inauguration, the very same day, he was overwhelmed. He has a very strong emotion effect with a sense of history. So, he is recalling all the history. And in the first decade of the 20th century, the first decade of the 20th century, that means early 20th century, that means 1900 to 1910, a few years after the bitter Anglo-Boer War. Now this one is the Anglo-Boer War. Boer here means African people. Okay, so they have this kind of war. And before my own birth, the white skinned people of South Africa patched up their differences and erected a system. Erected, that means built or construct. They have built a system of racial domination against the dark skinned peoples of their own land. Look at the time period. So early 20th century, early decade of the 20th century, and before just few years after this bitter Anglo-Boer War, and before his own birth, before Nelson Mandela's birth, these white-skinned people of South Africa, people who are living in South Africa, not just the European or British, but the people who are living in South Africa, they have patched up their differences. They have dealt with the differences, and they have constructed a system of racial domination against the dark skinned people of their own land. So these people are belong to the same land, that is South Africa, and still they have built a system which is called apartheid, or many people called it apartheid as well. The structure they created formed the basis of one of the harshest, it was very harshest and most inhuman, it is not human, it is most inhuman societies the world has ever known. That kind of society, that kind of system, this white skinned people of South Africa has erected, has constructed. Now, in the last decade of the 20th century and my own 8th decade as a man, okay, so last 8th decade of the 20th century and my own 8th decade as a man, okay, so he was in his 80s, right? And last decade of 20th century, that means from 1990 to 2000, that system had been overturned means that is reversed forever and replaced by one that recognized the rights and freedoms of all the people. So finally this country has built up, replaced this apartheid system, and they have given the rights and freedom to all the people, whether they belongs to a white race people or the black race or the colored people, regardless of their color of their skin. It is most important. Regardless of their color of skin, they have replaced the new system, and which gives the right, which gives the freedom to all the people, whether they belong to any color, whether they have any kind of color, whether they have any color tone of. That day had come about through the unimaginable sacrifices of thousands of my people. That day come about through the unimaginable sacrifices of thousands of my people, so not even just countable, they thousands of the African people, thousands of black African people, they have given the sacrifices and which are unimaginable. No one can imagine that kind of sacrifices they have done. A people whose suffering and courage can never be counted or repaid, and these people's suffering, these people courage can never be counted or repaid. We cannot count it, we cannot repay it. So that kind of struggle, unimaginable sacrifices they have done for their country, for their own people. I felt that day as I have on so many other days. I felt the same thing, and he felt so many other days even, that I was simply the sum of so he was simply the sum of all those African patriots. Patriots means a person who has a very strong love and affections towards the country, Deshbhakt. So he was simply the sum of those African patriots. So he was one of those people who fought for their freedom, who fought for their country and the people. So he was among one of them, one of those African patriots who had gone before me. So before even his birth, many people were there who sacrifices themselves for the country, for the welfare of the country and its people. So he is recalling all the freedom fighter of South Africa country. That long and noble line. So the line, look at this line. It was very long and it was very noble. The purpose of this fight was very noble. Ended. Now it is ended. And now begin again with me. And again it begin with me. So now the new line is going to form with me, with Nelson Mandela. I was pained that I was not able to thank them, and that they were not able to see what their sacrifices had brought, what their sacrifices had done or achieved. So he was feeling very pain, he was feeling regret that he was not able to thank them because they have sacrifices their life. Now they are no more here, right? So he was not able to thank them, and these people, those African patriots, those African freedom fighters, they were not able to see the fruits of their struggles, the fruits of their sacrifices, the liberty. Now they have achieved it. The policy of apartheid created a deep and lasting wound in my country and my people. So this policy of apartheid, this racial discrimination, created a very deep and very lasting wound in my country and my people. All of us will spend many years, if not generations, recovering from that profound hurt. So that wound was so deep that all of us, the people who are gathered there, the entire nation who was gathered there to celebrate the victory over these apartheid systems, they all spent many years, if not generations. If generations were not spent their years in this kind of movement, then also they will need so many years, not if generations, if not generations, but they will they need so many years to recover from this profound hurt. But the decades of oppression and brutality had another unintended effect, and that was that it produced the Oliver Tambo's. Look at this name. The is given here and plural is here. Oliver Tambo's, the Walter Sicilius, the Chief Lutilis, the Yusuf Dadus, the Bram Fissers, the Robert Wiz of our time. Now these are the some of the prominent name of the struggle against the apartheid. So they are the freedom fighters, and this, and here he want to say that these apartheid systems, this brutal and very horrific apartheid system has given the birth to this kind of people. They have produced these peoples. Now it is a plural. Why it is plural? Because, and the, why the? Because we know that if the proper noun, that means any kind of, any man or a woman, if they have that much they are so much of great importance to the country or to the world, that means we put the to salute them. And second thing, why it is plural? Because not just this Oliver, these are the few names, many more people are there who sacrifices themselves. So this is not just Oliver Tambo, more than one Oliver Tambos were there, more than one people were there who sacrifices their lives to fight against this apartheid system. So that's the reason that their names are in plural here. Okay, so these, some of the names are given here, the freedom fighters and men of such extraordinary courage. These men have very extraordinary courage. They have the wisdom and generosity that their like may never be known again. So this kind of people might never be born again. Only this apartheid brutal system has produced these kinds of men. They have given the birth to this brave, to this courageous, to this wise and generous people. So that kind of people will never be born again. Perhaps it requires such depth of operation to create such heights of character. So if we want these heights of character, then we need that much depth of operation. Then we can create this kind of people, this kind of high character of the people. We say that if we want to form any kind of shape of iron, then we have to melt it, and for melting we have to burn it. Okay, so that kind of thing is he is saying. Now these are the picture of the prominent freedom fighters who sacrifices themselves. This Oliver Tambo, Walter Sisulu, Chief Lithuli, Yusuf Dadu, Bram Fisher and Robert Sobukwe. I'm not sure whether I'm pronouncing it right or not. You guys check it out. These are the African names and bit hard to pronounce. Anyways, moving further. My country is rich in the minerals and gems that lie beneath its soil. Now he's moving ahead with the another topic, that he's talking about the country. And Africa is very rich in minerals and gems that lie beneath its soils. And these many gold factories are there. And one of the reason was that Anglo-Boer War, we have seen, we have mentioned this name earlier. And that war was just due to these gold mines. And they have produced so many gold, they have discovered so many gold minerals at that time. And that is the reason that Anglo-Boer War was occurred. And it is a very and he's right that this African country is very rich in minerals and gems that lie beneath its soil. So African earth is very rich in minerals and gems. But I have always known that its greatest wealth is its people, finer and truer than the purest diamonds. Now he is comparing his people, his this African people, more precious, more finer, more truer, and more purest than these diamonds, these minerals, these gems. So he is placing the people first, and then these minerals and gems comes. So according to Nelson Mandela, they are more fine, they are more true, they are more purest, and they are more worthiest than these minerals and gems. It is from these comrades in the struggle that I learned the meaning of courage. So he has learned the meaning of courage from these comrades, from these brave people. That the meaning of the courage. What is courage? Time and again, I have seen men and women risk and give their lives for an idea. And he has observed that men and women risk their lives and give their lives for an idea. Just for an idea, they give their life, they risk their life. And from that, he has learned the true meaning of courage. I have seen men stand up to attack and torture without breaking, showing a strength and resilience that defies the imagination. So, resilience, that means the ability to deal with any kind of hardship and recover from its effect. So he has seen these men and women to take to have a risk and to give their lives for an idea. And he has seen the people that they just stand up to attack, they just stand up to torture without breaking, without showing any kind of strength, or without and with the ability to deal with any kind of hardship and recover from its effects. So that kind of thing he has observed from these African people, from this brave people of Africa. I learned that courage was not the absence of fear but triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid but he who conquers that fear. What a beautiful quotation, and that is the reason I have colored it in a separate different color. I learned that courage was not the absence of fear. He learned that courage, bravery, it is not the absence of the fear. Bravery was not that we don't feel fear at all. Okay, it is not the complete absence of the fear, but the triumph over it. Bravery is what? The triumph over the fear. Triumph, that means great victory or achievement. Okay, so we have to triumph, we have to conquer this fear, and then we can say we are courageous. So that is what he wants to say. The brave man, the people who are brave, is not he who does not feel afraid. If a person does not feel fear, if a person does not feel afraid, that kind of person is not a brave man. He was not a true brave man. But the brave man was he who conquers that fear. If someone has any kind of fear, and if a person overcome with that fear, if a person defeat that fear, that means he is the brave man. So he has given the definition of the courageous man, who was the brave man according to him. No one is born hating another person because of the color of his skin or his background or his religion. So when we were born, we were not born hating another person. Whether we talk about the color of the skin, whether we talk about the background, social, economical, or religious background, we were not born with hating another person. People have learned to hate. Now we were learned to hate. If someone says we behave like a puppet, right? So we have learned to hate. And if they can learn to hate, that means people, if we are learned to hate, then they can be taught to love. If we are learned to hate, then we can also taught to love. And for love comes more naturally to human heart than its opposite. That means it's hatred. The hatred. So what he wants to say here, that when we were born, we were not by born hating any other person. Okay, we learn to hate from someone. We have taken certain perceptions, we have taken certain opinions, and from those opinions, from those perceptions, from those our prejudgment, we started hating someone. We started hating someone because of their color of their skin, because their background, because their religious, because their social background, because their gender even, right? So we were not, when we were born, we were not born with this kind of hatred. And what he thinks, that if we learn to hate something, if we learn to hate people biased on their skin background or any kind of religious, social, economical background, then we can also learn to we can also taught to love. So we can also taught to love. If we taught to hate, then of course we can be taught to love. And he feels that love comes more naturally to human heart than its opposite. If we if someone if someone tried to taught to love, that means when we started learning this love or hatred, right? So love comes more naturally. So we learn to love more naturally than the hate. even in the grimmest times in prison, grimmest, that means a very serious and gloomy. Of course, no one is happy in the prison, no one loves to be happy in the prison. So even in the grimmest times in prison, now he is talking about his days in the prison, when my comrades and I were pushed to our limits. His comrades, his companion, okay, they were pushed to their limits, pushed to our limits, that's mean pushed to the last point in our ability to bear pain. So they were getting so much pain, and they were totally exhausted with those limits, though exhausted with those pains, and they were at the last point of their ability to bear that kind of pain. And at that time I would see a glimmer of humanity. Glimmer, that means a shine faintly with a wavering light. So he has seen, he can see this glimmer of humanity in one of the guards. Okay, so when these anti-apartheid leaders or the people who were pushed behind these prison or bars, so they were continuously tortured, they were continuously beat by those jailers, by those officials. Okay, and that is the reason they were at their last limits. But at that time he has observed this glimmer of humanity, he has observed this small spark of the humanity, and in whom one of the guards. Okay, now guards were the people who are not just protecting this jail, they were protecting these the people who are in the prison. Okay, and to this kind of guards he has seen this glimmer of humanity, and perhaps just for a second, not that much very long, just for a second, but it was enough to reassure me and keep me going. And that a glimmer of humanity make him to keep going on his way, to keep going on this anti-apartheid movement. Man's goodness is a flame that can be hidden but never extinguished. Now, the same glimmer of humanity that he has seen in the guard just for a second, that kind of goodness, that kind of humanity, that kind of flame, it can be hidden but never extinguished. We can hide this goodness, we can hide this goodness, but we can never extinguish, we can never put off this flame that was flaming in one's heart. In life, every man has twin obligation. Now, again, in exams, you will get this kind of questions. Explain this. Which twin obligation Nelson Mandela is talking about and what happened to them. This kind of question would be there. So, pay attention here. In life, every man has twin obligation. Obligation, that means a duty or a commitment. So every man has two duty, has two commitment, has two obligations. Which obligations? First one is obligations to his family. First obligation is that obligations to his family. The second is to his parents, to his wife, and to the children. That means to the family. First is to family, right? To his parents, to his wife, to his children. These are the part of the family. So first obligation is towards his family, to his parents, wives, and children. And he has an obligation to his people, his community, his country. And the second obligation is towards his people, towards his community, towards his country. So every man has two obligation towards his family, and second one is towards his country. In a civil and human society, civil, that means a very courteous and polite. So in a very civil, very courteous, very polite and human, not inhuman, okay, very human society, each man is able to fulfill those obligations according to his own inclination and abilities. Inclinations, that means natural tendencies of behavior. If a person, if a man get this kind of civil and human society, then he is, each and every man, if this kind of society is there, civil and human society is there, then every man, each and every man is able to fulfill this twine obligation towards his family and towards his country. He is able to fulfill those obligations. He was able to fulfill this duty according to his inclinations and abilities, according to his tendencies, his abilities and his behavior. But in a country like South Africa, it was almost impossible for a man of my birth and color to fulfill both of those obligations. Okay, he is talking about the country where he was born, and that kind of country where this apartheid system was there, where this white supremacy were ruling over the country, and they had created this apartheid system. Okay, a system where black people were not given their basic rights. They were suppressed under these white people. So in that kind of country, it was impossible for any man of his birth, means person who is born in who was born during this period, apartheid period. And color, of course, color is most important, because apartheid system is totally based on this color, right? And if a person was born on that particular apartheid era, and with the black color of black color, so he was not able to fulfill those obligations towards his family and towards his country. In South Africa, a man of color who attempted to live as a human being. Look at this line. In South Africa, a man of color who attempted to live as a human being was punished and isolated. So that means in that era, what happened to people of this black skin color, not only just Nelson Mandela but many more black people, right? What happened to them? If they tried to live as a human being, they were punished and they were isolated. So they were treated as animal. So that kind of system was there. In South Africa, a man who tried to fulfill his duty to his people was inevitably, that means unavoidably, ripped from his family and his home and was forced to live a life apart, a twilight existence of secrecy and rebellion. So that kind of consequences they have to face if any kind of person, if any kind of black skinned South African person who tried to fulfill their duty towards family and toward his people, what happened to them? They were completely ripped off from his family. So they can't become a part of their family. They were completely ripped out from their family, from their home. So they were not even given this shelter. and they were forced to live a life apart. So they were forced to live a very lonely, very solitude life, aloof life, and the twilight existence of secrecy and rebellion. And they have this twilight existence, half light, semi darkness existence of secrecy. They used to live their actions, they used to live in a very secret manner, and their actions were totally rebellion. So that kind of life they have to lead if they try to fulfill their duty towards their people in South Africa. I did not in the beginning choose to place my people above my family. Okay, in the very beginning, even he did not choose his people over his above his family. Okay, earlier he was very devoted towards his family, but in attempting to serve my people, I found that I was prevented from fulfilling my obligations as a son, as a brother, as a father, and as a husband. But eventually, gradually, he realized. Earlier he was not very much interested in choose earlier he was not very much interested choosing his people over his family, but gradually he realized that he was prevented from fulfilling his obligation as a son, as a brother, as a father, and as a husband even. So he was not given the rights to fulfill his duty as a son, as a brother, father, and a husband even. Okay, so here I'm finishing this second part. In the third part we will discuss the later and the final part of the chapter. I hope you guys understood what I have discussed here. Thank you very much. Keep reading.